When I say 7, y'all say days. Hunting for the cheese like a mouse in a maze. Been down all my life, mama thought it was a phase. Same OG, guess I'm stuck in my ways. Last night I had a dream.
Welcome to Neutral Voices, the place where your voice matters. And this is our live segment where we laugh, inspire, vibe, and educate. And tonight is all about education. We have tons of education. We have so much education for you tonight. We got stacks of paper. we've been busy. We've been doing our research so we can bring you some powerful information on the vaccine. We're going to be talking about COVID-19, the vaccine, and who's going to be getting the vaccine.
You getting it?
We're gonna really talk about it, and maybe at the end of this we can decide. Yeah, one way or the other.
Let's hear it.
How about that?
Let's hear it.
So, just because, and we know it's late. Yeah, no, not really. Yeah, let's think it's early in the morning. Listen to this. I want to read this. This information is powerful, and we're going to be coming from the World Health Organization. So, why fix something when it's, it's already out there. We don't need to try to reinvent it. So here's the information coming from the World Health Organization, also known as WHO. And this is the official, from the official COVID page. How scientists plan to develop a coronavirus. They have 6 steps, and they broke it down. And I think that for us to be able to understand it, we need to go through it. So 6 steps. Can y'all handle 6 steps with me?
Got it.
Okay. So step number 1. So listen to this. If you need to take notes, feel free. Step 1. The process, the way they move through this, they identify and sequence the virus. So I'm going to read this real quick. When evidence of a new virus is detected, scientists work to isolate and identify the specific virus in question. Once isolated, scientists can rapidly sequence the unique genetic code of the new virus, which provides information needed to help design, diagnose, test, and potential vaccines and treatments. Let me read that part again. Once isolated, the scientists can rapidly sequence the unique genetic code of the new virus, which provides information needed to help design, diagnostic tests, and potential vaccines and treatments. On January 10th, 2020, Chinese health officials released the full genetic sequence. I think we all heard about this. They released this full genetic sequence of the coronavirus that caused the COVID-19. And just weeks later, guess what happened? The first case was discovered, and the very next day,
it was on it.
Everybody was on it looking for the cure. So trying to find the vaccine. So it started all over the world. So by comparison, it took several months for the discovery of the SARS. So I just want y'all to think about this. This was in 2002. It took them the sequence, the full SARS genetic code with the tools available at that time. So just several months, but it was a much faster timeline in the case of the COVID-19. So what's up with that? The technology had improved and they were able to do things and decode much faster. That's part of what has scared a lot of people. That's what a lot of people say. I don't want to get the vaccine.
Right. Even if technology has improved, why have we been working on vaccines for HIV, for hepatitis, for diabetes, for other things that kill millions and millions of people? Just to throw it out there, 75.5 million people have been infected with HIV. 24 million people have died from it. So if we have technology that is all of a sudden quicker and wonderful, why have we not addressed these other things? So I think that is where I become hesitant.
I think it's, I'll say this real quick and then E, you can speak on it. I think it's because there's a lot of fear factor around this because they obviously they didn't know where it came from. So they say, and it just showed up on the scene, and the rate that it potentially could kill people. And so maybe they're not thinking about HIV in the same sense, But that's a good point.
Possibly, but back in May of 2020, scientists in China were telling, or China was telling scientists that they thought they'd came up with a medication that that would stop this and that would offer short-term immunity. No vaccine needed. This was in May. World Health Organization came back and said a vaccine could take 12 to 18 months. This was in May. We are in December.
We have one.
We almost done with the year. So
we are in December.
Yeah. So I mean, the question is, how long did China hold on to knowing the genetic code?
Right, because they released it.
Yeah. How long has they been sitting on it?
Well, they probably sat on it for a little bit, but from what this says, it says that they released it. Once they found out about it on January the 10th, it says that they released the full genetic sequence of the coronavirus just a few weeks after.
Yeah. So how long? So if they released it a few weeks after, that means they've been sitting on this genetic code for the longest.
Well, that's the argument.
You have to think about it.
Well,
you have to really think about it.
And, like we were talking earlier, does that have anything to do with the reason that China has under 5,000 people that have died from this virus?
Correct.
Under 5,000 people.
They were already prepared because they knew what was going on.
They was ready to rock and roll.
I mean, if you really look at the facts, it's almost like they've got secrets.
Well, they
released it.
They may have. Let's keep moving through our steps so we can understand this whole process, and then we can make some intelligent decisions about this vaccine.
Step 2, determine the target. Vaccines work by imitating an infection to teach the immune system how to recognize, remember, and target microbial invaders like viruses and bacteria without actually causing an infection. The process to determine how to best deliver a vaccine is complex, as different approaches may work better for different pathogens. Historically, some vaccines, such as the measles vaccine, have used live but weakened versions of a pathogen, while others have used viral material that has been chemically inactivated or killed, which is the method used by the polio vaccine. Newer vaccines, such as the vaccine for hepatitis B, contain only a small part of a pathogen, usually a specific protein that the body can learn to recognize, known as an antigen. Given the pressing need for a safe and effective vaccine for the novel coronavirus, along with the volume of information that remains unknown about the disease, a wide range of approaches to vaccine development are being tested by biopharmaceutical researchers throughout the world to greatly improve the odds that one or more of these approaches will be successful.
I got a question.
So what? Yeah, go ahead.
I got a question. How can you target something that you really don't know nothing about? That's
another story.
I mean, let's look at it.
Well, and this is the 7th strain of coronavirus.
So how do you target it? How do you actually sit there and say, okay?
Well, they're scientists, so we would have a different thought. So we are looking at that. But the thing is that the pathogens, when when these things are in the body, certain things are placed in the body. That's what it's talking about. And then it begins to target certain things. So not necessarily the people.
No.
So it's talking about the process of what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're talking about the process. But that's what I'm saying. How can you know exactly what to target if you're really not knowing the whole thing?
Well, right, Jill, you can find that part. But one of the questions, the target part, and so we can talk about that here in a second. But one of the questions I have is how far down the road? I mean, even though they're doing whatever they're doing, how far down the road are they looking at different symptoms that might develop? right? So that's one of the things, one of the concerns, because Neutral Voices, we actually conducted our own personal survey. And in the survey that we took, so many people decided that they are not, and what was so hilarious, well, it's not funny, but it really was how fast some people reacted. And I'm talking about all different ages. And it was a quick, all I said was, are you guys going to, take the vaccine? No. And it was just a quick no. Okay, wait. I just asked a couple girls before we started, and the young lady, I would say she's about 18 to 20, and she said, no. I said, why not? And she said, because they came out with it too quick.
Right.
Yeah, they moved too
And
fast.
I think that's one of the issues, that a lot of people are having problems with it because of the time frame.
And it's not just your anti-vaxxers. I mean, there's people, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not getting that, and I don't want my child to get it. So I think people are hesitant for a variety of reasons, not just your people who normally are hesitant.
Right.
With
because I
vaccines.
normally don't take the vaccine, the flu shot or any
shots,
shot.
none of that. I'm scared.
You scared of this?
I'm scared of the flu shot. I'm scared.
Oh, you just scared of needles.
No, not needles.
That's Clarence.
I can't be scared of needles. I got tattoos.
Okay. Well, I definitely wanted to go back to that. So Jill, that target part. So
yeah, that I mean,
because I want to clear that up, because somebody else may have that question. So I want to just read this right here. It says, vaccines work by imitating an infection to teach the immune system how to recognize, remember, and target microbial invaders. So what's happening is the target that you're talking about is it's done on purpose so that the antibodies can target something that's happening. And so once you get this vaccine, what they're saying is you're going to have things in your body that's going to identify, it's going to recognize an intruder, or if this tries to come back on you, and it's going to be like, oh no, you can't dwell in this place. So that's basically what it's saying. It's going to target that particular strain. So everything is different with this particular one, but I just want to, anything else you want to talk about with that one, Jill, for number 2? Okay, so, but this particular one, I just want to point this out. Historically, some vaccines, like the measles, they use live but weakened versions of the pathogen, while this one in particular, it's a whole different story. It says newer vaccines, such as the hepatitis, contain a small part of the pathogen, usually a specific protein that the body can learn to recognize, known as the antigen. And this is what gives, it says, given the pressing need for a safe and effective vaccine for the novel coronavirus, along with the volume of information that remains unknown about the disease. So, with this one, I mean, it's just it's a lot of new stuff, even to the scientists. And so they didn't use it on humans. They didn't test it on the animals like they, have done in the past. So it's totally different. So, but as far as the human testing, how does that work with this?
Number 3?
With this one, number 3. Yes. Number 3, conducting preclinical trials. Once researchers identify a vaccine delivery mechanism, cell cultures or animal models are used to test the vaccine potential, safety, and effectiveness. As of June 5th, 2020, 129 vaccine candidates have entered preclinical testing. So we're talking about 129 people. That's not many. So, and that's why I'm reluctant, because I don't feel like it has been tested on enough people, right? And even though that was the preclinical trials, when we get into the next one where there's more people, we don't have enough.
Right. Number 4 is going to be interesting.
Well,
Number 4 is going to be interesting.
When you're looking at that, what about side effects? Is it enough time to know all the side effects?
No. So as we move, so then that was the thing.
That's a major look at it.
So what side effects have they discovered so far?
Well,
So from what we have researched, headaches, joint pain.
Fertility
pain,
issues.
Yeah,
I mean,
fertility and just joint pains, muscle pains, just pain all over.
and this is just the known. I mean,
Yeah, this
this is
what
just
known. So we don't know how long it's going to take or how long it's going to last.
Right.
And it's just a little scary to say, okay, you're going to put something in me, but you don't even know nothing about it.
Right. And I think first we've got Laura who's
What's up,
with
Miss
us
Laura?
tonight. Hi, Miss Laura. Laura says, I have heard that they are putting a chip in the vaccine to track you.
And I did some research on that, Laura. How are you? And yeah, they said that is not true, but then that's a conspiracy theory, and it was so heavy. We was like, we need to save this for a whole nother conspiracy show.
Well, right. But, I mean, a lot of people are nervous because who says it's not true? I mean, would they really come out and tell us with this vaccine, everybody's going to get a chip so we can track you? So I mean, they're not going to tell us that. I mean, the government doesn't tell us anything, really.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of people who really aren't normally conspiracy theorists are jumping on this bandwagon like, wait a minute.
And they were saying that the video that came out about that, it had so many views in it, so people kept watching it, and it was going on and on and on. And so, of course, people were talking about it, and so people started believing it.
Sure.
So the more people talk about it.
Absolutely.
Now, the other part of that is that, based on biblical beliefs, people think that that's coming, and they feel like the time is now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then it kind of aligns with everything that's been going on, even with the global warming. So it's not far-fetched.
No, and I've seen plenty of conversations where people do call this the mark of the beast. I mean, they say it. Let's be real. That's what a lot of people think is going on.
And then we're talking about Bill Gates, and he has so much money, maybe he could. Now, he is dealing with chips that will be placed inside human beings. I mean, they've already done it, but it's not connected to the vaccine so far.
You know what kind of chip I want?
I can imagine.
A Dorito.
Right about now. Right about now. So, which number are we on?
Number 4.
Step 4.
Yes.
Step 4 is conduct clinical trials. If a potential vaccine is successful in preclinical studies, scientists begin studying it in humans, which requires multiple types of clinical trials. Initial trials involve just a few dozen participants to provide evidence that a new vaccine is safe and to help researchers optimize dosing amounts. Demonstrating efficacy for vaccines presents unique challenges. Unlike most pivotal clinical trials, subjects in pivotal clinical trials for vaccines are otherwise healthy at the start of a clinical trial. Accordingly, demonstrating may require longer and larger clinical trials for vaccines than for other products. Additional trials examine the vaccine in hundreds to even a few thousand people to better understand how the immune system responds to a vaccine, whether it is effective and durable at producing immunity, and to further understand the vaccine's safety profile. Depending on the vaccine and the disease under study, thousands or even tens of thousands of participants may participate to increase understanding of the vaccine's safety profile. As of June 5th, 2020, 10 coronavirus vaccine candidates have entered into clinical trials.
And before we start talking about that, we do have a comment. So let's go ahead and address our comment.
It's Laura says, the Bible says that they will put the mark of the devil in your body. I'm scared of that. I don't know if it's now or later, but I'm not taking any chances. And Laura, that's kind of along the lines of what I was saying I was hearing in a lot of conversations. And I'm not talking one or two conversations. I'm talking a lot of conversations from educated, intelligent people.
I know, and I agree. And a lot of people get super spiritual and say, you're not supposed to be in fear. But when you start hearing about things like this and you have heard about it all of your life, it's just one of those things that happen. It make you feel like this is real and you're living in that time. But one of the things I wanted to comment, thank you, Laura, for that. But one of the things I wanted to comment on were you were talking about the conducting the clinical trials, and that was in step step number 4. The process is what we're talking about, that they go through or have gone through, the scientists, to develop the coronavirus. And this information comes from the World Health Organization, and some of it from the COVID-19 page. So one of the things that I was thinking about as far as the dosing, and so they start trying to look at the efficacy label to understand how to tell you what it's going to do to your body, the dose, the amount, and things like that. But it's all the challenges that they're trying. They don't know.
Right.
And so the greatest challenge is the fact, and that's going to be the reality, harsh reality, is that when they did this clinical study, it was on all healthy people.
Right.
And
right.
so now we're talking about people that have
underlying conditions.
That's right.
Because a lot of the people that are wanting to line up for this are the elderly, people who are sick. That's why they want to get it in the first place.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't really think it's giving us a very good indication. And not only that, but the government stresses how important diversity is with this testing. So, you know, just to be clear, African American population, Latino population, that population is slim to none when it comes to these trials because
the Tuskegee. I mean, Tuskegee experiment. I wouldn't want nobody putting nothing in me that they really don't know nothing about. That's just me.
Exactly.
Because the simple fact, now I'm like, okay, I got something in me. I don't know what's going on. And next thing you know, I got another neck coming out my side of my neck. So, you know,
bone.
Yeah. So,
and then we've got 2 of you and we're done.
Oh my goodness. But
yeah.
it's a scary situation, being that the Tuskegee experiment was what it was.
Right. And that's history. I mean, the swine flu, there's a lot of reasons that people are afraid of this, and especially afraid to volunteer to be a part of the trial.
Well, you mentioned the swine flu, and so we understand that it was a lot of people after they got the injection. So quickly, people began dying, and a lot of them were senior citizens and dying of heart attacks. And I think one of the parts that I didn't like about, you know, just doing the research on that was the fact that you couldn't do anything. So if you lost your loved one, it was like, okay, you can't blame it on this particular thing. Well, they got this. Some of the people died like an hour after getting the injection.
Immediately, almost immediately.
And so those types of things. And so you just thinking you just lost,
a loved one.
Yes.
Due to science.
Yes. And so, you know, so that's how come a lot of people are really reluctant to move forward with this. I want to move to number 5, which is obtain regulatory approval. And so by this point, the majority of the vaccine candidates will have failed, it says, underscoring the substantial risk and complexities involved. However, if a vaccine successfully makes it through clinical trial phases, researchers can apply for approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Applications for approval must meet FDA's robust standards of safety, purity, and potency to obtain approval and include data generated preclinical testing and clinical trials, in addition to significant information on the manufacturing process. So they do have to, you know, have a plan in place. How is this going to roll out? What's going to happen from there? And we have a video that we're going to show, and then we'll talk more about it.
R&D is how these ideas are transformed into potential new medicines. Sounds simple, right? Not quite. R&D is an area where biopharmaceutical companies shine, but it's still a challenge. Out of 10,000 potential new medicines, only 1 will actually make it to patients. And on average, it takes 10 to 15 years and $2.6 billion of R&D to produce a single medicine. Why? One reason is clinical trials that are lengthy and time-consuming, but worth it. To confirm that a drug is safe and effective, biopharmaceutical companies conduct multiple phases of trials. It involves years of collaboration with doctors, nurses, and patient volunteers with oversight from the FDA. If the trials are successful, medicines move on to FDA review, but there are no guarantees. From start to finish, only 12% of medicines that enter clinical trials are ultimately approved.
And that's Wow. I was just going to say that is something when you say only 12%
12%
Right.
is
are
approved.
approved.
Yeah.
And
That's-
one out of that
Out of
many,
10
actually,
one out of 10,000.
10,000
yeah.
So you think about 10,000 medications.
Types of medications.
and one out of all
One
the.
out of 10,000.
Yeah, right.
And then the $2.6 billion that goes into the research for one medication.
And the years of collaboration.
Wow.
Well, see, I'm gonna ask you: if it takes 10 to 15 years, how all of a sudden, less than a year, we getting a vaccine for this? If it clearly takes that long,
Well-
it's like you really just pushing it out there without really knowing what's going to really happen.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why, I was looking at some of the stats as far as the people and who's actually ready to take the vaccine. And it says that more men, and I thought that was interesting, but more men than women are ready to take it, ages 45 to 64, more Democrats. And I thought, man, they really check into all of that different things.
Interesting.
More Democrats.
The Republican already know
And
what's
we
going on.
already talked about more whites than blacks.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting.
Hi, Jashonda. Jashonda's with us, and Jashonda writes, I am not anti-vaccine, but I am hesitant to get this one. In my opinion, there hasn't been enough time for adequate clinical testing of any of the vaccine candidates. Unfortunately, as a healthcare provider, I may eventually be mandated to get it if I want to continue to work. I think you may absolutely be right on that.
Right, because who's lined up first?
Right.
First
Right.
line.
Yes, the
First.
people in the health careers, and the second was the elderly people, I believe, or vice versa, somewhere in there. And I feel exactly the same way about that. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
I said the same thing as far as my job. As a teacher, I think that could be something that they mandate.
Well,
What am I going to do? is the question.
They could, and then a lot of people will be put in. It's one thing to have a choice if you're going to take the vaccine or not. It's another to have to choose between the vaccine and your job.
And your livelihood.
And your livelihood, exactly. And something I found interesting is there are 6 million people in Indiana. A little over 6 million. However, Indiana is getting 55,000 vaccines for the very first round for 6 million people.
So how is that going to work?
How is that going to work? How are they going to?
If you think about it, a lot of people are not really going to take this vaccine.
So you said it'll be enough because
But there,
most of us.
but there are
Most of
some who do want to.
No,
Are
I
they-
mean, and then if they do mandate the nurses and things like that, that's all the nurses
Right.
and
Right.
doctors.
Is there
out
going to
the
be
gate.
any vaccine left for the people that do want it? Are they going to be
Yeah.
fighting over it? Is this going to be a whole different ball game?
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, a lot of people don't like the fact that you have to do 2 rounds of it.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
Right.
but they're gonna track you. I mean, because watch this distribution. So if we take it a little bit further, so manufacturing and distribution. Let's talk about that.
While the vaccine is going through clinical studies, biopharmaceutical researchers are also developing the manufacturing methods that will be used if the new vaccine is successful. For some types of vaccines used in large populations, these methods then undergo massive scale up to enable the manufacture of what can be millions of doses. This is an enormous undertaking, as the transition from laboratory to manufacturing facility is incredibly complex and must ensure consistency in the vaccine composition and safety and efficacy, I always pronounce that, efficacy profiles. As developing the manufacturing strategy can be a multi-year process, biopharmaceutical companies are already seeking to expand their manufacturing capacity. Companies are also initiating manufacturing capabilities at risk well before a COVID-19 vaccine receives regulatory approval to speed the production process when a vaccine is ready. Safely delivering a vaccine to patients around the world is an equally challenging undertaking, especially in less developed regions, as vaccines often require special handling, such as temperature control during distribution. Biopharmaceutical companies are working closely with local governments and NGO partners to lay the groundwork for potential distribution at a global scale.
And we would say, in a nutshell, federal government will be the ones overseeing.
Right, basically.
That.
Big brother gonna be big brother.
I'm just saying, and they're gonna be the ones ordering it, distributing it, and tracking it. So, and all vaccines will be ordered by the CDC. So, trying to put that in a nutshell, because that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And this
All of
information,
this is a lot.
if I could just be real with you, it's just overwhelming, and it makes you feel some type of way just doing the research, knowing that this is real life and you don't know where it's going to fall on you and how it's going to affect you moving forward.
I think that's what's important is, people do need to do their own research. Don't listen to what your uncle says.
Absolutely.
Don't listen to what one YouTube video says. You have to do your own resources, because you have to live with whatever choice you make.
That's right. Now, this last point, who will, we were talking about distribution, who will distribute? And have you guys heard of the Operation Warp Speed? And so I know somebody, have mentioned it before, but so those are the partners, but long story short, they are the ones that's going to develop, make, and distribute millions of vaccines quickly and safely. So what they're saying is people don't need to be afraid, because you have all these people overseeing this vaccine and the distribution and it being made. And as manufacturers begin to produce more, they're in a position where they're already expanding and planning on expanding their facilities so they can accommodate manufacturing more products. So,
but there's still, at the end of the day, there's no guarantee, no matter how many trials they do. I mean, no matter how do you do these trials? You don't even have enough time for the side effects to develop, let alone tell us what they are.
Well, I read this on the CDC. It's a risk. And the biggest thing about this vaccine is to prevent the spread, because it doesn't actually kill the coronavirus.
Right.
It just helps prevent the spread. So what does it make? Why do you make a vaccine that doesn't kill the actual?
Right.
Well, why can't we just figure out whatever China was doing to stop the spread?
They were keeping people in the house.
why can't we, why why hasn't
They
anybody...
had different rules.
They had different
Clearly.
rules.
Something's going on in China.
They had curfews and everything. They wasn't letting people out.
Yes.
Because they refused.
Well, I have to admit to you, it is that time. It is time for us to not go to bed.
Now it's time to say goodbye.
It is time for us to wrap it up. So I just want to say, hopefully we were able to give you some information, some insight, awareness, a little deeper on this particular subject, and stay tuned. Because, once they start rolling out the vaccine, I'm sure we'll give some more feedback and updates. And, it's going to be a long time before we hear true symptoms from people. You know what I mean? I just believe that.
It's going to be a long time.
A long road ahead of us. Jill, you have something for us before we leave?
Sure, I do.
Something to...
There has been a complete world divide that seems to have hung over us like a dark cloud since 2020 began. COVID-19 and all that it encompasses is no exception to that divide. Some are waiting in lines for this vaccine, while others are nowhere near wanting to be in that line. Some have lost their mothers, their fathers, their family members, while others don't even believe that COVID is real. Regardless of the choice that you make, do your own research in order to make the best decision for you and for your family. Remember that your choices are always yours, and their choices are always theirs. As with anything else, we cannot fight this together if we are not fighting this together.
Thank you, Jill. That was awesome. This is Neutral Voices, and I just want to remind you to stay safe. So it's still out there. So as you move to and fro, wear your mask.
Join us tomorrow to discuss this a little more.
Yes, and
we want to hear your thoughts and comments on this tomorrow.
Absolutely. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
When I say 7, y'all say days. Hunting for the cheese like a mouse in a maze. Been down all my life, mama thought it was a phase. Same OG, guess I'm stuck in my ways. Last night I had a dream.